Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host, Vicky Midwood speaking, and I want to say welcome if this is your first time here. I am the Human Health Optimizer, and I help to talk about everything that is mind, body, spirit related to health, because as whole humans, we need to look at all aspects of health, not just one or two. My main specialism is helping people to let go of the thoughts, the habits, the beliefs that they need to look to external things, i.e., their body size or shape, or turn to alcohol to help them to get through life. These things are a solution and usually not your problem. Although, if you continue to utilize them multiple times a day, they can, in and of themselves, become a problem. And so, what I help people to do is unravel all of that so that they no longer feel the obsession, compulsion, or need to look at themselves in terms of a specific dress size, or to turn to a substance or gambling or anything external to manage life. And today I want to talk about that in terms of healing or recovery, if you like. When we talk about these problems around food, around alcohol, perhaps using prescription medication, gambling, shopping, or external things that we turn to just either numb us out, to distract us from feeling the feelings that we're feeling, or to just kind of help us to get through the day. And just what we need to be able to do to stop this behavior on a permanent basis. And so when I'm talking about recovery from, it's really eliminating or letting go of the feeling that you need to keep doing this stuff. And that need can be really powerful and it can be really compelling. And there's this idea that you're never going to be able to change because it's too hard. Maybe you've tried multiple different things, different programs, processes before, and it feels like you are different, you are unique, nothing works for you. And I want to kind of let you know that every single person I work with says exactly that. We all think that we are different, that we are special, that we are the only people feeling the way that we're feeling. Now, I shared more about this on last week's podcast about what it actually means to be human. And so if you want to go and have a listen to that, that's not a bad idea, because you'll recognize that there are four main things that we humans fear. And it's not being good enough. It is not being loved. It is being judged, feeling unworthy. And it is usually just really believing that everybody else is better than you. And these are the things that are universal. But when you're in it, it does feel like you're the only one. And so what I want to kind of help you to recognize is there are certain things that you can do, but being in your head is not one of them. You can't think your way out of recovery. You have to get out of your head and into healing, into change, into eliminating, into letting go. And if you've ever found yourself kind of endlessly analyzing, overthinking, planning, but not actually changing anything, then I think this episode is for you. Because when you live in your head, especially if you're navigating an addiction, an eating disorder, or ADHD, then I think it will resonate with you, because you cannot think your way better. You cannot think your way to a different outcome. You have to take action. And so your brain won't save you. There's this belief that your brain is in control of you. And often it feels like it is, because these thoughts keep on coming in, and you're not going to stop the thoughts from coming in. But what you are going to do is you're going to be able to stop focusing on them, to stop paying them so much attention, and to stop believing that they are true and factual. And you can therefore make a different response and take a different action. And that's the crucial thing, is taking a different action. So recovery doesn't come from insights alone. And this is where understanding why you do what you do and why you want to change is absolutely vital. But on its own, it's a trap, it's a loop. And we can go into overthinking and what I call analysis paralysis, where we keep asking, yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? But what can I do it differently? But why? But what if I do that? And then we start going down the road of what ifing. Once we start going down the road of why and what if, we are so in our head and the thoughts literally cascade. I think Mel Robbins uses an analogy that I quite like. It's about when you think one of those negative thoughts, it's like washing in a tumble dryer. If there's a little bit of lint, it picks up more and it picks up more and it picks up more. And suddenly you get this ball of lint that can clog up your machine. And that's often how it feels in your head. And so what I want us to recognize is that nothing can change until we actually take an action. Now, if you're taking an action that is kind of restricting or refusing to eat food on a regular basis, if you're taking an action that is over exercising to compensate when you do eat, if you're taking an action that is drinking because you're telling yourself that you need it to sleep or that you've earned it or that you deserve it or you need it to calm your nerves or whatever the story that you've associated or attached to that habit, then we need to help you to recognize that you need to take a different action. But you still need to act because you can't think about not doing the thing and hoping that that is going to make you not do the thing. Because by default, if you're thinking about not doing the thing, you're still thinking about the thing. If you're thinking about not drinking, you are still thinking about drinking. If you're thinking about not exercising, you are still thinking about exercising. You get my point. So if you want to feel more confident and more able to take a different action, then you need to just jump into the momentum and do something. Because confidence doesn't start in the brain. It starts by doing stuff. It starts by doing things and showing up and seeing that actually you can survive doing something different. In other words, you can cope with the discomfort. Will it feel great? No. But I had this conversation with somebody this morning. We're not designed to feel great all of the time. We're not meant to be happy all of the time. That is not how humans function. What we're meant to do is experience all kinds of multiple emotions throughout the day because emotions are just signals and cues. Then we need to notice something, that we need to take a different behavior pattern, or that we just need to take our attention somewhere else other than where it is. And so what I really want you to recognize is that when we are stuck in our head, we are basically avoiding. It's an avoidance pattern. Overthinking is avoiding taking action, isn't it? Procrastination, overthinking, very similar thing. When we're hyper-focused on staying stuck in our head and falling into this trajectory of one thought after another, usually critical, usually negative, very rarely positive, then we're avoiding taking action. And here's the thing. You're living in your head, it feels productive. Like you're planning, you're telling yourself, I need to think it through. But it's not, right? It's self-protection. And actually, it's uncomfortable because the more you're staying in your head, the more uncomfortable you're starting to feel about all of the stuff that you're not doing. We usually, for people who have eating disorders, being in your head means that you can dissociate from your body. So again, it's an avoidance pattern. For ADHD, people who struggle with ADHD, racing thoughts, mental clutter, and difficulty following through with what you know, this is again an avoidance pattern. I just want to understand it more and then I'll stop. Once I feel motivated, then I'll take action. But that day doesn't come because motivation comes from action. Motivation does not come from overthinking. And then it takes on a momentum of its own. So what we need to do is start asking the question, what is the one thing that I can do right now? And then you just need to do it. Now, I know because I work with a lot of people who have eating disorders and ADHD. And what they tell me is that their head will then go to all kinds of options about what is the next thing that I can do. And so the answer is the very first thing. The very first thing that pops into your head before you started to go down the road of overthinking, do that thing. And you do it for 5 minutes, because that's how momentum starts. So this is not, oh, I need to exercise for an hour. No, just move your body for 5 minutes and then see how you feel. Why? Because once you're in your body, you can get away from that trajectory of overprotection, of avoidance, and you can start to really focus on what it is that is the next step. What we can do is we can look at the things that actually are going to make the difference in terms of how you feel and how your brain functions, because that is ultimately what we need to do. So you need to get in the present. You need to get in the here and now. And that's why doing something that is going to bring you into the present is the most important, fastest, first way to get momentum, to get you into action. So it could be that you splash your face with cold water, or even just put your hands into a sink full of cold water and simply just connect to how it feels. Not observe it critically, but just connect to feeling the cold on your skin. It could be that you just literally try and connect to feeling your heart beating, so that you're actually just present with yourself and you're feeling that sense of touch. Why is that important? Because when we touch, whether it's ourselves or somebody else, there is a chemical that is released in our body called oxytocin. Whether we're stroking our skin, whether we're putting our hand here, whether we're just doing something like this, where our own hands are touching our skin, we're creating that chemical release of the hormone that helps you to feel safe and secure and nurtured and loved. And this is why a sense of touch is so important. One of the reasons why being alone is so negative on the human body and brain is because we miss that sense of touch. It's not just being in a room and chatting to people, it's being able to touch them and hold them and have a hug, or just having that connection. Now, if you haven't got somebody around and you feel silly asking for a hug or somebody to just hold you, then this is what you can do. You can hold yourself, literally put one arm underneath your armpit, put your hand on your shoulder, and just give yourself a squeeze or a cuddle, and just notice, what does it feel like with your fingers on your shoulder? What does it feel like to close your eyes and to just connect to that? Again, without criticism, without allowing yourself to go into your head. Just notice it. That's all. Our brains work better when we are regulated. And so this is why being present is so important. So you can do a body scan, for example. You can just notice, how do my feet feel on the ground? If you're sitting down, how does my butt feel on this chair? How does it feel against the back of my legs? And just notice and make that connection. Because you are never going to feel motivated to take a different action if you're staying in your head. We cannot outthink negative thoughts. As much as you may want to believe that you can, we can't. But what we can do is then start to look at interrupting the patterns. When you've brought yourself back into the present, just go, okay, what do I actually need to do now to interrupt this pattern, to stop it from coming back again? And it's a tiny thing usually, right? And that is to notice the thought, thank your brain for making you aware of it, and then decide if you need to respond to it or if you just need to move on and do what you were going to do before that thought came in. The most important thing, I think, is to help yourself to get the stuff out of your head. Because when we stay in our head the whole time and we're not writing it down and we're not talking to anybody about it, this is where we just literally are piling on stuff. And I think of it as a bit like a dustbin, that it is just one more thought on top of another, on top of another. And you've all seen a dustbin, I am sure, out there in the public when it's been so overflowing that the rubbish just spills out onto the pavement. And what is the thing that needs to happen? Well, it's not shoving more rubbish on the bin. It's not pushing the bin down even more tightly, is it? No. What is it? We have to get rid of it. Right? We have to get rid of the rubbish. And that means that you talk about what your fears are. You look at them with the help of somebody who can say to you, okay, and when you're thinking that thought, what's happening in your body? Are you feeling tight in your chest, in your throat? Are you feeling a sensation in your tummy? Does it feel like your tummy's being screwed up in a knot, or does it feel like butterflies? Because all of our feelings and all of our emotions are going to have a corresponding sensation. And if you can start to connect to your body, it's going to give you a clue as to whether you are excited, or whether you are feeling that you are appreciative, or whether you are actually scared. And if you're scared, it's okay, right? Every single human is scared about the unknown. We're meant to be. That's why we're still alive. But that doesn't mean to say that you can't go ahead and do things just because you don't know the outcome. One of the biggest issues that I find is, particularly with people with addictions and with ADHD, is this wanting to know the outcome before they take the steps to take the action that's going to elicit permanent change. And why is that? Well, it comes down to the simple fact that you know the current identity that you have. Therefore, it feels safe because it's familiar. And the thought of who will I be if I am not doing these same behaviors is often the very thing that stops us from taking the action that we need to take. And the question is not who will I be? It's who are you stopping yourself from being by continuing to do what it is that you're doing now. And I'm going to leave you with that, because we cannot stop the thoughts from coming in, but we can choose what we do with them. And when you start to recognize that you cannot outthink negative, critical thoughts, but you can take action to help you to feel and function in a different way, which by default will then elicit different thoughts, you will start to feel more in control and less like you need to turn to other things to help you to function as a human. I hope this has been helpful. And if it has, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do, so you don't miss another episode. And if you do want to talk to me about what is going on for you, whether you are struggling with ADHD and an eating disorder, or you have an eating disorder, or you think you have, but you're not sure, perhaps you're struggling with body image, overeating, or maybe it's alcohol or prescription drugs that are keeping you stuck in secrecy, keeping you feeling guilty, keeping you feeling ashamed about who you are being and how you are showing up. I want to know that this is a safe space. I am someone who has been where you are. If you want to know my story, please do check it out on previous episodes. In fact, episode 14, 15, 16 of this podcast, way back when in 2023, I actually did talk about this stuff. I lie, it was 2021. I talk about this stuff. There's also a little bit of info on my story on my website, which is just vickymidwood.com. My point is, you are not alone with how you feel, and you're not alone with the thoughts and the language and the belief that you'll never be able to be any different. And if you choose to do things differently, if you choose to take action more and get out of your head faster, you can change. It's a process and it's not a race, but you can do it if that is genuinely what you feel you would like for yourself. And I'm going to leave you with this, as I always do. We only have one life as far as we know, and one body. So please look after it, because it is looking after you. Until next time, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.